The security guard's hand tightened around my arm just as the music swelled and the guests turned to stare. I could still see my son, Daniel, across the room, standing at the edge of the dance floor, his jaw clenched, refusing to look at me. My purse pressed against my side, and inside it was the one thing he never expected me to bring to his wedding, the only thing that could save him from the woman he had just married. My heart wasn't racing from fear. It was something colder, humiliation, betrayal, and a quiet, steady resolve. But before I continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. My name is Margaret Hale. I'm 68 years old, and I still don't understand how my son became convinced that his own mother was a threat on his wedding day. I never imagined the days leading up to my son's wedding would feel like walking barefoot on broken glass. Weddings are supposed to be joyful, messy, chaotic, expensive, sure, but joyful. I had spent years picturing Daniel's big day. I imagined myself helping him choose his tux, placing my late husband's cufflinks on his wrist, fixing his collar like I used to before school. I imagined us sharing a clumsy dance at the reception, both of us laughing at how stiff we'd become with age. But none of that happened. Instead, the week before the wedding, I felt like a guest in a life I had once built with my own hands. My routine back then was quiet, almost too quiet. I woke early, made tea, checked the garden, and read on the porch if the weather allowed. Being a retired teacher meant my days belonged to me, and being a widow meant my nights belonged to memory. Daniel was my only child, my only daily excitement. Even after he moved out, he still called me almost every evening, sometimes short calls, sometimes long ones. He'd tell me about work, friends, worries, groceries, traffic, anything. He used to say talking to me grounded him. But around the time he started dating Emily, those calls grew shorter, then less frequent, then cautious. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I was being too present. Maybe he needed space. Maybe he was finally building a life that didn't revolve around his mother. I told myself that was good, healthy, but soon it didn't feel healthy. It felt calculated. The first sign came 3 weeks before the wedding. I was in the kitchen, scrubbing a pan that had burned on the stove when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Daniel. "Mom, did you really say that to Emily?" I froze. I didn't know what he was talking about. I typed back, "Say what, sweetheart?" He didn't answer. Hours passed. I called him twice, straight to voicemail. That night, he finally sent a message. Never mind. Emily said it was a misunderstanding, but he didn't tell me what the misunderstanding was, and that silence felt heavier than any accusation. The next sign came at a brunch Emily hosted at her apartment for the bridesmaids, and supposedly for me. I brought a pie, pecan, Daniel's favorite. Emily opened the door with a smile so tight it looked painful. "Oh, Maggie, you're early." I checked my watch. "It's 11:05. You said 11. She blinked, confused, then stepped aside. Inside, her friends were already eating. I tried to shake it off. Maybe she'd simply changed the schedule and forgotten to update me. Brides get stressed. I reminded myself to stay compassionate. But throughout the brunch, Emily hovered behind me like a shadow. Every time I spoke, she corrected me. If I laughed loudly, she moved closer. If I mentioned Daniel, she redirected the conversation. When I tried to share a story from his childhood, one of those harmless, sweet stories mothers tell, Emily laid a hand on my arm and said sharply, "Let's not embarrass him today, Maggie. This is supposed to be classy, as if my entire existence was an aesthetic inconvenience. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was sensitive, aging, lonely, but deep down something was stirring, something old and instinctive. That sense teachers develop after decades in classrooms, the ability to feel when a lie floats in the air, like smoke. A few days later, I ran into my neighbor, Mrs. Adler, in the driveway. She's 82, sharp as a tack, and far more observant than people give her credit for. "Your girl's been visiting a lot," she said, as she watered her geraniums. "Emily?" I asked. She nodded. Sweet face, but cold eyes. "She visited Daniel's car twice last week, stayed inside a long time, didn't say hello." I frowned. "Emily doesn't drive Daniel's car." Mrs. Adler shrugged. "Well, she sat in it, phone in hand, looked upset. Maybe she was waiting for him." Something felt wrong. Emily had no reason to be near my house without Daniel. That evening, I called my son again. He picked up, but his voice was tense. "Hey, Mom, I'm in the middle of something. Everything okay?" I asked. Yeah, just busy, wedding stuff." "I saw Mrs. Adler today," I said carefully. She mentioned Emily was near the house. He sighed loudly. Mom, please don't make something out of nothing. Emily was just picking up something I left in your mailbox. It's fine. But he sounded annoyed, not like himself. I hung up with a knot in my stomach. The third sign came at the bridal shower. I had been assigned to bring the floral arrangements. Simple enough. I arrived early with the flowers, proud of how they turned out. I had spent the morning trimming stems and choosing ribbons. It felt good to contribute. But when I walked into the venue, the wedding planner whispered something to Emily, who immediately frowned. She approached me slowly, like she was approaching a stray dog. Maggie, we actually changed the color palette. We're doing neutral greens now. But thank you for these. She gestured at my flowers, soft pinks and lilacs. My heart dropped. You didn't tell me. She smiled thinly. I sent you a message last night. I checked. No such message existed. When I showed her my phone, she shrugged. Maybe it didn't deliver. Happens. But it didn't happen. Not to every message. Not conveniently. Not only to mine. All afternoon, I felt like an intruder. The planner kept glancing at me nervously. The bridesmaids whispered behind their hands. Every time I tried to help, Emily redirected me or corrected me, or quietly removed something I'd done. At one point, I overheard the planner murmur, "Is she really as volatile as Emily said?" My chest tightened. Volatile? Me? I wanted to confront Emily right then, but a voice inside me, my old, patient teacher voice, told me, "Wait, watch." So I watched, and what I saw was a woman weaving a story, stitch by stitch, a story where she was the perfect bride, my son the loving fiancé, and I, the problem. Still, I did nothing. I didn't want to ruin Daniel's happiness. Weddings are stressful. People say things they don't mean. Emotions get tangled. But the next morning, everything changed. I was watering my garden when my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Mom, please don't cause trouble at the wedding." I felt dizzy. I sat on the porch, staring at the screen. Cause trouble? Me? What had Emily told him? I tried calling him, but he didn't answer. After the third attempt, he finally texted back, "Emily told me you've been acting different. Just please don't escalate things." Different. Escalate. Words that didn't belong in my son's vocabulary. Words someone else had fed him. I typed, "Daniel, I need to see you before the wedding. Alone." He read it. 3 dots appeared. Then they disappeared. I waited an hour, then 2. No response. That afternoon, as I was sorting through old family photos to choose something meaningful for the rehearsal dinner, my phone lit up. A message from an unknown number. It read, "If you want to understand what's happening, check the wedding gift table early. Don't let her get to it first." My whole body froze. Who sent it? Why anonymously? What was Emily planning? I reread it a dozen times. My pulse thumped against my neck, heavy and slow. Then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife a little deeper, another message popped up, this time from Daniel. "Mom, Emily thinks it's best if you don't come to the rehearsal dinner." I felt the world tilt. She was cutting me out completely. I tried calling again. Once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail every time. I felt cold. Very cold. I walked into my bedroom, opened the drawer where I kept old letters and documents. My hands trembled, not from age but from something sharper. Fear mixed with clarity. Something was happening. Something big. Something intentional. By the time sunset came, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to let anyone, bride or not, erase me from my own son's life. I wanted answers. Proof. Truth. And if Emily was hiding something on that gift table, I would find it. As I sat in the living room that night, the house quiet around me, I felt something change inside. A small spark of resolve, a shifting conscience. The first hint of the woman I would have to become to survive what was coming. And that's when it happened. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Daniel. "Mom, I'm begging you, don't make this worse." Worse. As if I were the storm, not the target. I closed my eyes and exhaled slowly. What had Emily told him about me? What lies had she planted? What had I done to deserve being treated like a threat? That night, I barely slept. And when morning came, I made myself a promise. I would attend the wedding. I would uncover what Emily feared I might find. And I would protect my son, whether he wanted me there or not. But I had no idea yet just how far Emily had gone, or how close I was to discovering the truth that would tear open the entire wedding. I woke the next morning with the same uneasy heaviness in my chest. It wasn't just worry anymore. It was suspicion, sharp and cold, like a thin blade under the skin. Someone was steering things behind the scenes, feeding Daniel a version of reality where I was the villain. and I knew exactly who that someone was. Still, part of me hoped I was wrong. That hope, fragile, flickering, was the only thing keeping me from breaking. I decided to try one more time to talk to Daniel face to face before the wedding. If he could just look into my eyes, if he could hear my voice without Emily in the background, maybe I could reach the boy I raised. So I drove to his apartment. When I arrived, I saw Emily's car parked out front. My stomach tightened. She wasn't supposed to be there. Daniel had once told me Saturdays were his catch-up and chores mornings, alone time. But her car was right there, angled crookedly like she had rushed inside. I climbed the stairs slowly, rehearsing what I would say. Stay calm. Don't accuse. Just tell him you love him. Tell him you're worried. Ask him what's wrong. When I reached the door, I knocked gently. Footsteps, a whisper, then silence. Finally, the door opened, but only a few inches. Emily stood there. Just Emily. "Maggie," she said, her voice honeyed but cold underneath. "What are you doing here?" "I need to speak to my son." She positioned herself in the doorway like a bouncer. "Daniel's resting. The week has been stressful for him. I don't think now is a good time. He doesn't need protection from me," I said softly. She smiled. "That's not what he told me." A chill crept up my spine. "Emily, please." I tried again. "This is between mother and son." Her smile slowly disappeared. "Nothing," she said, "is between you and Daniel without going through me first. That's how families work, Maggie. You have to understand boundaries." Boundaries. My own daughter-in-law was telling me I needed boundaries with the child I raised alone after my husband died. "Daniel," I called through the crack in the door, ignoring her. "Sweetheart, I just want to talk." Emily didn't move, but she didn't close the door either, which meant he was there, listening. "Daniel?" I tried again. Silence. But I could feel him on the other side of the wall. I knew that quiet. "Please," I said, softer. "Just let me understand what's going on." Emily finally spoke again, still blocking me. "He said you've been emotional lately, confused, upset. He doesn't want to escalate things before the wedding." There was that word again. Escalate. A word so unlike my son, it practically screamed someone else had put it into his mouth. I steadied myself. "Daniel," I said, "you know me. You know who I am. Please, just open the door." Again, nothing. Emily gave me a pitying look. "Maggie, you're making this uncomfortable. I'll tell him you stopped by." She shut the door, right in my face. I stood there for a long moment, hand still raised, palm hovering in the air over wood that suddenly felt 1,000 miles thick. Then I turned and walked back down the stairs, each step heavier than the last. My chest ached, not from anger, but from a deep, aching grief. My son wasn't just being influenced, he was being controlled. I returned home and sat in my living room, staring out the window at nothing. My hands trembled, and at first I thought it was fear, but then I realized it was anger. Not the explosive kind, not the dramatic kind. No, it was the quiet, righteous anger of a woman who has been underestimated for far too long. I took a deep breath and picked up my phone. If Daniel wouldn't talk to me, I would find out what Emily was saying behind my back. I called the wedding planner, Rachel, a young woman with a sweet voice who had always spoken kindly to me before. She answered with a hesitant, "Hello?" "Hi, Rachel," I said. "It's Maggie, the groom's mother." Silence. A thick, uncomfortable silence. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Hale." Her tone was stiff, formal, very different from the cheerful way she'd addressed me weeks earlier. "I wanted to check about the rehearsal dinner," I said. "Daniel told me there were changes?" Another pause. "Well, yes. Emily thought it would be best if, the dinner was more intimate." "Intimate," I repeated. "Meaning family only?" Another long silence. "Meaning bride and groom only," she finally said. "They want to keep things low stress." Low stress. Low stress apparently meant no mother. "I see," I whispered. "Did Emily say why?" Rachel exhaled nervously. "Mrs. Hale, I don't want to get involved, but Emily said some things. Stuff about you feeling overwhelmed, that you were having trouble keeping up with details. She said you've been drinking more, and that you confronted her at the shower." I closed my eyes, fighting back a wave of disbelief. "I haven't had a drink in months," I whispered. "I'm just telling you what I heard," Rachel said gently. I didn't believe it, but, well, she seemed very concerned. Concerned. That was the word manipulators always used when they wanted to sound innocent. I thanked Rachel and hung up, my hands shaking. This wasn't normal wedding stress. This wasn't misunderstandings or clashing personalities. This was a campaign, a deliberate, systematic attempt to paint me as unstable. And the worst part? It was working. That evening I received another message. this time from Emily herself. "Hi, Maggie. Just checking in. I know tensions can run high during big life events. If you ever feel overwhelmed, please know we only want the best for you." Overwhelmed. I stared at that word. One more needle threaded into the same narrative. I texted back, "Please let Daniel talk to me directly." Her reply came instantly. "He's resting. He doesn't want additional stress right now. Please respect that." I felt my throat tighten. Daniel always came to me when he was stressed. I was his refuge, his calm, his grounding. Now he supposedly needed protection from me? No, that wasn't Daniel speaking. That was Emily speaking through him. And I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. The next day brought the strangest puzzle piece yet. I went to the venue to drop off a small gift I'd prepared for the couple. A memory box with childhood photos of Daniel. Nothing dramatic, nothing intrusive, just something sweet for the future. When I arrived, the venue coordinator, a man named Victor, greeted me stiffly. "Mrs. Hale," he said, avoiding my eyes. "We weren't expecting you." "I just wanted to leave this for the gift table," I said. He shifted uncomfortably. "We were told you might try to interfere." "Interfere?" My breath caught. "Interfere with what?" He looked conflicted. Then, in a lower voice, he said, "Look, I don't want to get in trouble, but Emily told us you've been acting unpredictably. She said if you came by without her or Daniel, we should notify her immediately." I felt as if the floor tilted beneath my feet. Unpredictable, unstable, volatile. The vocabulary was spreading like poison. "Did she say why?" I managed to ask. Victor hesitated again, then said, "She mentioned concerns about your mental health and that you might disrupt the ceremony." I had to grip the edge of the counter to steady myself. Mental health. She was trying to label me as mentally unwell. I swallowed hard. "Victor, did she also tell you not to let me near the gift table?" His eyes flicked to mine, just for a second, and that second was enough. Something was on that table, something she didn't want me to see. "I just need to place this down," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "I won't touch anything else." He hesitated, then finally nodded and led me toward the reception hall. As we walked, I noticed raw tension in the air. Staff exchanged nervous looks, not at each other, at me. This wasn't ordinary miscommunication. This was a narrative, a planted narrative, one Emily had been rehearsing with an audience. When we reached the gift table, I placed the box gently onto the far corner, and that's when I saw it. A small, sealed envelope with my name on it, placed deliberately off to the side, almost hidden beneath a stack of gift bags. My pulse quickened. "Did someone leave this for me?" I asked. Victor shrugged. "It was already there earlier. Emily said it wasn't important." Not important, which meant it was very important. I reached for it, but just as my fingers brushed the edge, Victor stepped forward. "Mrs. Hale," he said softly, "Emily asked us not to let you go through anything." I straightened slowly. "I'm not going through anything. I'm picking up something with my name on it." He hesitated, then stepped back. I took the envelope, and I left. I didn't open it in the car. I drove home with it sitting on the passenger seat like a living creature humming with possibility. When I reached my house, I closed the blinds, sat at my kitchen table, and finally slid it open with my thumb. Inside was a single printed screenshot, a text conversation between Daniel and Mom. Except I'd never had this conversation. In it, I wrote, "You're throwing your life away. I won't let her take my place. If you marry her, I'm done with you." And Daniel replied, "Mom, stop. You're scaring me." My blood ran cold. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't exaggeration. This was forgery. Pure, deliberate forgery. Someone had fabricated an entire text thread, and I knew exactly who. But I needed real proof, more than a fake screenshot. Something undeniable. That's when my phone buzzed again. A message from the same unknown number as before. "She's planning something bigger. If you want evidence, check Daniel's phone before the wedding." My breath caught. Daniel's phone? How would I? And then a memory surfaced. Mrs. Adler, Emily in Daniel's car, on her phone. She had access. She was inside his accounts, his messages, everything. A cold understanding washed over me. Emily wasn't just isolating me. She was rewriting me. And if I didn't act soon, there would be no version of me left for Daniel to love. I folded the fake screenshot, placed it back inside the envelope, and stared at the wall for a long, silent moment. The lie was spreading. The trap was tightening. And if Emily wanted to paint me as unstable, I would have to become something else entirely. Focused, strategic, quiet, patient. A woman preparing for a storm. Because whatever Emily had planned for the wedding day, I knew it was coming, and I would be ready. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I lay in bed, staring at the dark ceiling, listening to the old house settle and breathe. The fake screenshot sat on my nightstand, its edges glowing faintly in the light from the street lamp outside, like a small monster waiting to be acknowledged. Emily had crossed a line, not of manners, not of taste, but of ethics, of sanity. She wasn't just trying to push me away, she was trying to make me disappear, to erase me from Daniel's life by fabricating a mother who didn't exist. And now someone anonymous, was warning me that more was coming. I needed proof, real proof, proof that didn't rely on my word against hers, and that meant gaining access to something Emily couldn't manipulate after the fact. Daniel's phone. But how? He wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't meet with me alone. And Emily guarded him like a dragon guarding a treasure, not out of love, but out of possession. As I stared at the ceiling, a thought surfaced in my mind like a memory rising from deep water. The rehearsal venue. Tomorrow evening. Daniel would be there. Emily would be distracted. And I would find a way. By sunrise, I had a plan. Not a perfect one, not a foolproof one, but a plan built on something stronger than fear, clarity. Step 1. Get into Emily's planning space. Step 2. Find anything she had fabricated. Screenshots, emails, drafts, whatever. Step 3. If possible, prove she had access to Daniel's accounts. That evidence, combined with the fake screenshot I already had, would be enough to confront Daniel, or at least force Emily to stop. But first, I needed to know where she kept her wedding materials, and I knew exactly who had that answer. Rachel, the wedding planner. It took courage to call her again, knowing she'd been fed lies about me. But when she answered, her voice was calmer, maybe even sympathetic. "Mrs. Hale," she asked, "is everything okay?" "I just have a quick question," I said gently. "Where does Emily keep all the planning documents? I want to drop off something for her." A beat of hesitation. Then Rachel sighed. "She uses a shared space at the Waverly co-working loft. She practically lives there these days." "Perfect, thank you," I said softly. She hesitated again. "Mrs. Hale, just be careful. Emily is particular. Particular. Such a polite word for dangerous." The Waverly loft sat on the top floor of a renovated brick warehouse. Exposed beams, glass walls, shared tables, the kind of place young professionals use to feel important. I arrived mid-afternoon, dressed casually, hair tied back, everything about me designed to look harmless. The front desk receptionist, a young man with long hair and a pierced eyebrow, looked up with polite disinterest. "Hi," I said warmly. "I'm here to drop off something for Emily Parker." He blinked once. "She's not here right now." "Perfect." "Oh, no problem," I said. "Can I leave it at her desk?" "Which workstation?" he asked. I forced a chuckle. "Oh, she'll kill me. I always forget the number. She showed it to me once. Could you maybe point me in the right direction?" He hesitated, looking torn between rules and laziness. Finally, he gestured vaguely toward the open floor. "She's on the left side, big corkboard, millions of color swatches." Of course she was. "Thank you," I said. I walked smoothly, casually, like someone dropping off a card, not like someone trying to dismantle a manipulation empire. When I reached the desk, I felt a jolt of recognition. Photos of the venue, seating charts, fabric samples, and a large corkboard filled with notes in Emily's perfect handwriting. But what caught my attention wasn't on the board. It was on her laptop, sitting closed, but not fully. A thin blue light pulsed beneath the lid. It was asleep, not off. I looked around. Nobody nearby. Just a few people with headphones on, lost in their screens. I sat down in Emily's chair as if I belonged there. Deep breath. Then I lifted the laptop lid. The screen blinked awake. No password prompt. She had left it open. My heart pounded. Her desktop appeared. Folders, documents, sticky notes cluttered across the screen. Most notably, a folder labeled Family Dynamics, Talking Points. I clicked. Inside were dozens of documents. And then I found a file that made my hands go cold. Narratives for Daniel. Final draft. Narratives. Plural. I opened it. Lines and lines of sentences filled the screen. Scripts, rehearsed talking points, manipulation strategies disguised as concern. One bullet point read, "If Maggie brings up past memories, redirect conversation toward her recent behavior." Another, "Encourage Daniel to view Maggie's emotional responses as instability rather than love." Another, "Mention concerns about her drinking lightly, especially around others." And then, Phase 3, "Limit her access to Daniel during wedding week." reinforce the idea that she's overwhelmed and needs rest. My throat tightened. This was planned. This wasn't impulsive cruelty or nerves. This was a strategy, a calculated effort to estrange a mother from her son. But that wasn't even the worst part. Another document sat below it. Screenshots, draft folder. My hand shook as I opened it. Rows and rows of files appeared, some clearly edited, others incomplete, some labeled with dates that didn't make sense. Each file contained versions of text message threads between me and Daniel, threads that never happened, threads Emily was fabricating, testing, refining. I felt nauseous. This woman wasn't just lying, she was rewriting relationships. My hands were shaking now, not with fear, but with pure moral outrage, with grief, with the realization that I had been fighting an invisible war without knowing I was even a soldier. And then came the final blow. A subfolder labeled Daniel, Account Access. I clicked. Inside were screenshots of his phone logins, passwords, two-factor authentication resets, email confirmations, a recovery code. My stomach dropped. Emily had hacked or coerced her way into Daniel's digital life, his messages, his email, his social media, his contacts. She wasn't just controlling the narrative, she was controlling Daniel's entire world, and through him, me. I sat back in her chair, breath shaky, eyes burning. This wasn't normal manipulation, this was emotional imprisonment, and my son was trapped inside it. I knew right then what I had to do. I pulled a USB drive from my purse, something I kept for storing old photos. But now it had a new purpose. I inserted it into the laptop, heart hammering. Copy, 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 every document, every fabricated screenshot, every password list, every script she'd written. While the files transferred, my eyes wandered to a small notebook beside the laptop. It was leather-bound, neat, almost too perfect. Curiosity tugged at me. I opened it. Inside were handwritten notes. I recognized some of them from the documents. But then I turned a page and froze. This page was titled, Rehearsal Dinner Strategy. It read, Ensure Daniel is emotional before ceremony. Mention concerns about mother. Inform venue staff preemptively that Maggie is unstable. If Maggie interferes with gift table, alert security immediately. Final step. Daniel must be convinced removing Maggie is for her own good. A chill swept over me. She was planning to have me removed even before the wedding day. And then, scribbled at the bottom in uneven handwriting, an unusual slip from someone as controlled as Emily, was the final note. After Saturday, she's out of our lives for good. My hands clenched around the notebook. Out of their lives for good. Not distanced, not separated, erased. I swallowed hard and kept copying files until the USB indicator light stopped blinking. Then I closed her notebook exactly as I'd found it, closed the folders, lowered the laptop lid, straightened the chair, and I walked out of that co-working space like a woman carrying a bomb, a quiet one, a calculated one, a righteous one. Back home, I locked the front door and sat at the dining table. The USB drive felt heavier than any object its size should weigh. It contained the truth, the real truth, and also the shape of the person Emily truly was behind her perfect smile and curated sweetness. I made a backup copy on my computer, then emailed the files to myself and a separate storage account. I wasn't going to let evidence disappear the way she wanted me to disappear. As I sat back, breath finally evening out, a realization settled over me. This wasn't just about the wedding. This wasn't even about Daniel. Emily was trying to isolate him from everyone, friends, co-workers, anyone who threatened her control, and I was just the first obstacle. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. A message from the unknown number again. You're close. Be careful. She's more dangerous than you think. My heart jumped. I typed quickly. Who are you? No response, but I didn't need one. I had enough. Enough to confront Emily. Enough to save Daniel. Enough to stop the final step she'd written in her notebook. And that's when the doorbell rang. I stiffened. I wasn't expecting anyone. Slowly, cautiously, I walked to the front door and looked through the peephole. My breath caught. Emily. She stood on my porch with a perfect smile, her hands folded politely in front of her, like a wolf knocking on the door in a silk dress. I didn't open the door. She knocked again, a little louder. Maggie? She called sweetly. I know you're home. I said nothing. I just want to clear the air before tomorrow. Silence. It would be a shame, she continued, her voice dropping ever so slightly, if things got worse. There it was, the threat, behind the sugar, behind the smile, behind the lace and the wedding veil. I stepped back from the door, heart pounding, but my mind sharper than ever. I didn't open it. I didn't answer. Eventually, she left. Her heels clicked down my porch steps like gunshots, and as her car pulled out of my driveway, the truth settled fully in my bones. Tomorrow wouldn't just be a wedding, it would be war. The morning of the wedding felt strangely quiet, as if the world were holding its breath. Even the birds outside my window seemed hesitant, their songs softer than usual. I woke before the alarm, sitting up slowly, my hands resting on my knees as my mind sifted through the night's thoughts. Today was the day. Today, everything would break, either for destruction or for truth. I stood up and walked to my dresser. There, laid out carefully from the night before, was the dress I'd chosen. A soft, slate blue gown, simple and elegant, not flashy, not demanding attention. I had bought it months ago, imagining a joyful day, imagining Daniel hugging me tightly and whispering, "You look beautiful, Mom." But now, as I lifted the dress, that imagined moment felt like a memory from another life. I dressed slowly, deliberately. My hands were steady, steadier than they should have been. It wasn't calm, it was clarity. When I reached for my purse, I opened it and checked its contents again. The USB drive, a printed copy of Emily's forged texts, a copy of her talking points, a spare copy of the password document, and my phone with a backup of everything uploaded to cloud storage. If Emily took my bag, she wouldn't take the evidence. If she took my phone, the truth wouldn't disappear. I had learned from her. She taught me to think like someone who planned for control, and that was her mistake. She made me a strategist. I arrived at the venue early before most guests. The sky hung low with heavy clouds, as if debating whether to rain. The parking lot was still mostly empty, just a few staff cars and a shuttle van. When I stepped into the reception hall, the scent of fresh flowers and the hum of last-minute preparations filled the air. Staff hurried back and forth, carrying tables, linens, centerpieces. The chandelier lights glowed warmly across the room. But as I walked farther in, I felt eyes on me. Staff members whispered. Some avoided my gaze. Others straightened, as if preparing for trouble. Emily had gotten to them already. I forced a soft smile as I walked past. At the far end of the room, near the bar, stood Victor, the venue coordinator who had warned me, in his own gentle way, about Emily's concerns. He looked up as I approached, visibly tensing. "Good morning," I said. He swallowed. "Mrs. Hale, I didn't expect you so early." "I have a habit of showing up for important things," I said lightly. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "If you need anything, please let me know." There was something in his tone, something conflicted. Some part of him didn't believe the story Emily had planted, but he had a job to do. "I'm fine," I said gently, "and don't worry, I'm not here to cause trouble." His shoulders relaxed an inch, but only an inch. I made my way toward the ceremony space outside. The chairs were lined up neatly, ribbons fluttering in the soft breeze. The arch was decorated in ivory flowers and eucalyptus, creating a picture-perfect backdrop. If I didn't know the truth, I might have cried at the beauty of it. Instead, I felt a quiet resolve settle into me like the weight of a warm, thick coat. I would not let Emily win. A few minutes later, a golf cart whirred up the path. Daniel stepped off. My breath caught at the sight of him. He looked so handsome, tucks pressed perfectly, boutonniere pinned to his lapel. His hair trimmed just the way he liked it. He looked like my little boy and a stranger all at once. "Mom," he said, surprised. You're early." "Just wanted to help," I replied softly. He hesitated, glancing behind him as if expecting someone. "Emily's getting ready," he finally said. "Of course," I nodded. "It's her day." He exhaled, the tension in his shoulders visible. "Mom, I don't want any issues today." There it was again. Issues, concerns, escalations, Emily's language. "Daniel," I said gently, "do you really think I'm here to cause problems for you?" He hesitated too long, too painfully long. Emily said, "There have been things." "Fake things," I said quietly. His brow furrowed. "What?" "Never mind. We'll talk later," I whispered, not wanting to fight outside his ceremony space. It would only feed Emily's narrative, but Daniel didn't push. He just nodded uneasily and said, Please don't make today harder than it needs to be." And then he walked away, walking toward the bridal suite, walking toward Emily, walking away from me. I stayed still until he disappeared inside the building. Then I closed my eyes, inhaled slowly, and whispered to myself, "You're not the victim anymore." Inside the hall, the atmosphere thickened as more guests began to arrive. Laughter, chatter, excitement, and beneath it, a tension that crackled like static electricity. Some family members approached me with polite smiles. Others looked unsure, like they were trying to remember a rumor but couldn't quite place its source. Aunt Lorraine hugged me warmly, God bless her, and whispered, "You look tired, dear. Everything all right?" I wanted to tell her everything. Instead, I smiled. "Just wedding stress." She nodded sympathetically. "Emily said you've been overwhelmed lately." Of course she did. Lorraine squeezed my arm and moved along, oblivious to how close her words came to reopening a wound. Everywhere I turned, Emily's fingerprints were on people's perceptions. She had planted seeds of doubt, watered them with false concern, and watched them grow like weeds. But weeds could be pulled. I just needed the right moment. When the ceremony began, I sat in the second row, not the front, where the mother of the groom should sit. Emily had assigned me to the second row with the excuse of better camera angles, a lie as flimsy as tissue paper. I sat quietly as guests took their seats. Music swelled. Emily appeared at the end of the aisle, perfect in her lace gown, smiling with a softness that looked genuine if you didn't know her handwriting on a notebook threatening to erase a woman from her family. As she walked down the aisle, her eyes swept across the rows like a queen inspecting her kingdom. Then, her gaze landed on me, and she smiled, a smile that wasn't joy, a smile that whispered, "You're already losing." I smiled back, a smile that whispered, "Not for long." The ceremony passed without incident. Vows were exchanged, rings placed, lips kissed. Applause echoed across the garden. But as guests began migrating toward the reception hall, I noticed something. 2 security guards were stationed by the entrance, not just stationed, watching me, waiting. Emily had prepared the next phase. I walked calmly into the hall, even as the guards moved subtly, positioning themselves just close enough to intervene if necessary. Daniel was busy greeting relatives. He looked happy, but ripe with tension. Emily was beside him, her hand on his arm, her smile sparkling as she thanked guests. When she turned her head slightly and noticed me, her smile faltered for half a second, a fraction too long. I saw it. Winters of teaching children to read faces made me an expert in micro-expressions. That flicker wasn't fear, it was calculation. She looked at the guards. A small gesture, barely a tilt of her chin, a signal, but not yet. She wanted an excuse first, something she could point to and say, "See? I was right." The DJ started playing music. Guests flocked to the tables. The bar opened. Laughter mixed with clinking glasses. For a moment, it almost felt like a real wedding, until I noticed the wedding planner whisper something into Emily's ear. Emily's eyes widened slightly. She looked toward the gift table. Then she looked toward me. She thought I'd gone there already. She thought I had touched something, but I hadn't yet. She walked across the room, weaving between tables with that stiff elegance she carried like a weapon. When she reached me, she leaned in close, her voice smooth as silk. "I'm glad you made it, Maggie," she said. "Why wouldn't I?" I replied. She smiled. "We just want everyone to have a peaceful time today." "Everyone but me?" I asked softly. Her smile didn't flinch. "You know exactly what I mean." "I do," I said. "And so will everyone else." Something flickered in her eyes. Annoyance, then concern, then anger. I saw it. A crack. "Careful, Maggie," she whispered. "If you make a scene." "You mean like being escorted out by security?" I asked. Her eyes widened, just barely. "Enough. You are dangerous," she said quietly. "For Daniel, for us, and I won't let you ruin this day." I leaned forward, my voice low and calm. "Emily, I know." Her breath hitched. "Know what?" "I know everything." Her face drained of color. She tried to laugh it off, but the sound wobbled. "You're confused," she whispered. "You're overwhelmed. You're making things up." I slipped my hand into my purse. Her eyes flicked downward. Fear, real fear, for the first time. Not because she thought I had a weapon, but because she knew I had evidence. I didn't pull it out yet. Not here, not now, not until the moment would land like a thunderclap. "I think Daniel deserves to hear the truth," I said calmly. Emily's jaw clenched so hard I could hear her teeth grind. "You don't have the truth," she hissed. "You have whatever narrative you made up to feel important. And you have notebooks," I said softly, "and drafts, and screenshots you fabricated." Her breath caught. She stepped back, just a little, and that's when I heard it. A radio crackle. Security had been signaled. Emily's voice rose just enough, soft, but audible, to the guards. "She's having an episode. A lie. A rehearsed line. A final attempt to cement her narrative." 2 guards approached from behind, walking with measured, cautious steps. Daniel looked over, confusion transitioning into panic. The moment was collapsing. The walls were closing in. Emily was tightening the noose. But she had forgotten something. I wasn't the same woman she had pushed around for months. I straightened my shoulders, stepped forward, and let everything fall quietly into place. As the guards reached for me, guests turned, heads twisted, conversations hushed. Emily lifted her hand, feigning concern. "Please," she said loudly, "let's not make this harder for her." But I raised my voice, just enough to cut across hers. "Daniel," I called. He turned fully now, panic growing. "Mom, what's happening?" I reached into my purse. Emily's breath stopped. The guards paused. The room froze. I pulled out a small brown envelope, the one that held copies of all the evidence. I held it up, my hand steady and sure, and in the quietest, most controlled voice I'd used in years, I said, "Before anyone touches me, I think the groom deserves to see what his wife has been hiding." Gasps rippled through the room. Emily's face went white. Daniel stepped forward, eyes wide, torn between belief and disbelief. Emily tried to grab his arm. "Don't listen to her, she's—" But Daniel pulled away, and I saw it. That crack from earlier, it was no longer a crack. It was a fracture, a break, a beginning. For a moment, everything stopped. The music, the chatter, the clinking of glasses, it all faded into a muffled blur as I stood there with the envelope raised in my hand. The guards hovered beside me, unsure, waiting for direction. Daniel stared at me, his face pale, his eyes flicking between me and Emily like he was watching a car crash in slow motion. Emily recovered first. "Daniel," she said, her voice trembling with rehearsed emotion, "please, don't let her manipulate you on our wedding day. She's overwhelmed. This is exactly what I warned you about." I could feel dozens of eyes on me, some sympathetic, some suspicious, some entertained, like they thought this was messy drama instead of the slow execution of a mother's character. I didn't look at them. I looked only at my son. "Daniel," I said softly, "please, just take it." He hesitated, muscles clenched, as if reaching for that envelope would be a betrayal of his wife. Emily stepped slightly in front of him, subtly blocking his path. "You don't need to see whatever she—" "Move," he said suddenly, firmly. Her head snapped toward him, stunned. He stepped around her and closed the distance between us. The guards looked at each other, unsure whether to intervene, but Daniel raised his hand toward them. "It's fine," he said. "Don't touch her." Those words hit me harder than any shove could have. He took the envelope from my hand. I watched his fingers tremble as he opened it, pulling out the printed pages inside, the forged text messages, the document of Emily's talking points, a copy of her password notes. He scanned the first page, then the second. The color drained from his face. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. I spoke low, but clear enough for the nearby tables to hear. "From her laptop, at the Waverly Loft." A murmur rippled through the guests. Emily's eyes widened, and the mask finally slipped. "You broke into my computer?" she shrieked. "You violated my privacy?" "Your privacy," I repeated, my tone still calm. "You mean the privacy you used to forge conversations between me and my son? The privacy you used to steal his passwords and rewrite our relationship?" Gasps, heads turning. Some guests stood now, straining to see. Emily's chest heaved. For the first time since I had known her, she wasn't in control. "She's lying!" Emily cried, pointing at me. "She's making this up. She's obsessed with Daniel. She can't stand that he has a life without her. She's—" "Emily," I interrupted quietly, "that envelope is only the beginning." My hand slid back into my purse. Her eyes locked onto it, terror blooming behind her rage. "I brought copies," I said softly, "and I didn't just bring them for him." I turned my head toward the back of the room, where the DJ stood behind his booth, hands hovering over the soundboard and laptop. He met my gaze. I gave the slightest nod, and he nodded back. Emily saw it, her face contorted. "What did you do?" she hissed. The music stopped abruptly. The lights dimmed just a fraction. And then, on the large TV screen behind the sweetheart table, the one meant to project photos of the couple, something else appeared instead. A screenshot, not a real one of Emily's drafts. The one where I supposedly told Daniel, "If you marry her, I'm done with you." Only this one was different. This time, the metadata bar at the top was clearly visible, and it showed the file name. Fake text, Mom, version 3, PNG. A collective gasp echoed through the hall like a physical wave. Another image popped up, a folder labeled Screenshots Draft Folder, full of files with names like Maggie Angry Edit 2 and Mom Unstable Final. Guests craned their necks, whispering, pointing. The guards backed away from me entirely now, as if I were radioactive and they had just realized they were on the wrong side. Emily lunged toward the DJ booth. "What are you doing?" she shouted. "Turn that off. That's private. That's stolen. That's—" Victor, the coordinator, stepped into her path. "Emily," he said, voice low but firm. "We need to understand what we're seeing." His eyes flicked to me, and in that moment I knew. He was the anonymous number. He had seen enough behind the scenes to know something was wrong, and he'd been trying to help me in the only cautious way he could. More images flashed on the screen. This time, a close-up of her handwritten notes. Phase 3, limit Maggie's access to Daniel. Frame concerns around mental health and overwhelm. Final step, after Saturday, she's out of our lives for good. A woman at a nearby table slapped a hand over her mouth. Someone else muttered, "Oh my God." Emily spun back toward me, wild-eyed. Her perfect hair had come slightly loose, a strand falling across her face. "You did this," she spat. "You're sick. You're vindictive. You hacked me. You broke in." "I copied what was already there," I said calmly. "What you wrote, what you planned, what you did." I turned to Daniel. His hands were shaking around the papers. He looked like a man standing on the edge of a cliff, realizing the ground beneath him had never been solid. "Is this true?" he whispered to Emily. She laughed, too high, too sharp. "Of course not. She's twisting things. Is it true?" His voice cut through hers like a blade. Her mouth snapped shut. For the first time, she looked small. "It was just planning," she said finally. "You know how anxious you get about your mother, about her moods. I was just trying to help you set boundaries. That's all this is, taken out of context." "Out of context?" I repeated. "Like the fake messages? Like the instructions to tell staff I was unstable? Like the plan to have me removed today?" Heads turned to the security guards. One of them cleared his throat. "She did tell us you might be a danger to yourself," he said quietly, "and that we might need to escort you out if you got upset." Daniel's head whipped toward Emily. "I thought we were past the drama," she snapped at the guard. "You're making it sound worse than it—" "Emily," Daniel's voice stopped her again. "Did you fake these texts?" She swallowed. Her veneer of calm was crumbling, cracking through the middle like delicate glass under strain. "I just adjusted them," she said, "to show you who she really is. Sometimes people don't reveal their true selves straight out. Sometimes you have to push them." "To show me who my mother is?" he cut in, incredulous. "The woman who raised me alone? Who worked 2 jobs so I could go to college?" Emily's eyes shone now, not with genuine tears, but with the frustrated, hot fury of someone losing control of their script. "She's smothering you," she said, voice rising. "She's jealous. She can't accept that you chose me, that we're building a life that doesn't revolve around her. She was going to ruin this wedding. I was protecting us." I felt something inside me go quiet, not broken, just finished. Finished apologizing for existing, finished bending to make myself small, finished letting someone else narrate my love for my own child. I stepped closer to Daniel, but not too close, just enough so he had to see my face clearly, not as part of the crowd, not through anyone else's lens. "Daniel," I said softly, "look at me." He did. "Have I ever," I continued, "ever said I would be done with you if you chose someone over me?" He shook his head automatically. "No." "Have I ever told you you weren't allowed to have a life without me?" Another small shake. "No." "Have I ever shown up at your door screaming, drunk, unstable?" He swallowed hard. "No, Mom, but she said you—" "She said," I echoed. "Not I." I nodded toward the screen, where her password list was still visible, damning and clinical. "She logged into your accounts, Daniel," I said. "She saw our real conversations, and she decided they weren't dramatic enough, so she edited me. She redesigned your mother into a version that would justify cutting me out." He looked at the screen again, at the pages in his hand, at Emily, whose face had become a mask of desperation. "Tell me she's lying," he said to her, almost pleading now. "Please, Emily, tell me she's lying." Silence. Long, heavy, suffocating silence. Her jaw worked soundlessly. Then finally, she said, "I did what I had to do to protect us." There it was. No denial, no misinterpretation. Just justification. Daniel closed his eyes. A tear slid down his cheek, cutting a clear line through his wedding day composure. "We didn't need protection from my mother," he said hoarsely. "We needed protection from you." Emily flinched, as if he'd slapped her. "You're making a mistake," she whispered. "She's manipulating you right now in front of everyone. Look at her. This is exactly what she wanted, to turn your wedding into a circus so she could be the center of attention. I didn't defend myself. I didn't need to. The evidence was still on the screen, in her handwriting, in her folders, in her own words. Aunt Lorraine stood up from her seat and said, louder than she probably intended, I don't think Maggie wanted any of this, but Emily, it looks like you did. Voices rose in agreement. Disgusting, someone muttered. How could she do that? Whispered another. The crowd's energy shifted. I was no longer the suspected villain. I was the woman standing in the wreckage, holding nothing but what was left of the truth. Emily looked around, realizing the room was slipping away from her, like sand through desperate fingers. Fine, she spat at Daniel. Believe her. Believe the sad widow with her martyr act. See how long that carries you when she's back to smothering you, calling you every hour, crying if you don't answer. You think she's going to suddenly become healthy just because she embarrassed me? It's not about embarrassment, I said quietly. It's about control, and about the fact that you were willing to erase me to get it. Daniel inhaled sharply, his breathing ragged. Then he turned to Victor. Turn it off, he said. Please. Victor nodded and signaled the DJ. The screen went black. The lights returned to normal, but nothing in that room would ever be normal again. Daniel looked at me, then at Emily, then at the guests, who were pretending not to stare and failing miserably. I need a minute, he said. He walked toward the side door, shoulders rigid, jaw clenched. For a terrifying second, I wondered if he would ask me to stay away. Then he said, without looking back, Mom, come with me. The words hit me like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. I followed him out into a side hallway, leaving Emily standing alone in the middle of the reception hall, surrounded by silence and eyes. In the hallway, Daniel leaned against the wall, sliding slowly down until he was sitting on the floor, tux pants creasing, hands hanging limp between his knees. I sat beside him. For a long time, we didn't speak. Finally, he said, barely above a whisper, Did you really go into her computer? Yes, I answered. Because she had already gone into your life. He nodded slowly, like someone piecing together a broken mirror. I thought you were losing it. She said you were harassing her. She showed me screenshots, told me you threatened to ruin the wedding. I didn't want to believe it, but I was scared. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I know. I pushed you away, he said. I let her talk about you like you were dangerous. You were trying to keep the peace, I said gently. You were trying to be a good fiancé. You believed the person you were marrying wouldn't lie about something like that. He covered his face with his hands. What have I done? You trusted the wrong person, I said. That doesn't make you a bad son. It makes you human. He looked at me, eyes red. I am so sorry, Mom. Tears finally slipped down my cheeks, but they weren't the hopeless tears I'd cried alone in my kitchen. These were different. These were heavy, but cleansing. I'm sorry too, I whispered, for not acting sooner. For hoping it would fix itself, for letting her hurt you through me. He shook his head. You brought the truth. You saved me. He said it so simply, so quietly. But those words, they filled a space inside me that had been hollow for months. I reached over and took his hand. For a moment, it felt like when he was 10 years old, scared of thunderstorms, and I'd sit beside his bed holding his small fingers, telling him the sky was just rearranging itself. Now his hand dwarfed mine, but he was still my boy. What are you going to do? I asked softly. He exhaled slowly. I don't know, but I know I can't start a marriage built on that. There was no need to define that. We both knew what it was. You don't have to decide everything today, I said. You just have to decide whether you're willing to ignore what you've seen. He shook his head immediately. I can't. Not now. He stood slowly, helping me up with him. Will you stay? He asked. For whatever happens next? I smiled sadly. I was never going to leave Daniel. Not this time. We walked back toward the doors of the reception hall together. Whatever waited on the other side, broken vows, angry confrontations, gossiping relatives, it no longer felt like a battlefield I had to face alone. For the first time in a long time, I felt like his mother again. And as we stepped back into the hall, with everyone watching, with Emily's mask lying shattered at her feet, I knew the real wedding, the one between truth and lies, love and control, was about to reach its final vow. The days after the wedding felt strangely quiet, like the world had lost its echo. There was no dramatic screaming match, no plates thrown, no chaos. Emily left the venue with her parents before Daniel and I returned to the reception hall. She didn't look at us as she walked out. She simply gathered her dress in her fists and stormed past the guests, face burning with rage and humiliation. Daniel didn't chase her. He stood beside me, shoulders squared, eyes clearer than I'd seen in months. When people approached him, some curious, some offering sympathy, he answered with a calm honesty that surprised even me. "We need time," he said. "I need time." Over the next week, the truth unraveled faster than I expected. The full scope of her manipulation became undeniable. Her access to his accounts, the fake messages, the lies she told to his friends and coworkers, every thread led back to the same place: control, power, isolation, not love. Daniel moved out of the apartment they shared. He stayed with a friend for a while, then eventually asked if he could come home, just for a few days, he said. Those few days stretched into 2 weeks, then 3. We didn't talk constantly. We didn't cry dramatically on each other's shoulders. We just existed under the same roof again, quietly, gently, as if rediscovering a language we used to speak fluently. One night, he sat beside me on the couch and said, "I almost lost you." I rested my hand over his. "No," I told him. "You were never lost, just misled." He nodded, eyes shining in the dim light. "Thank you for fighting for me." I squeezed his fingers. A mother's love doesn't disappear because someone tries to rewrite it. And that is the truth I want to leave you with. People can twist your words, recast your intentions, or even forge a version of you that never existed. But the truth always outlives the lie, especially when you have the courage to hold on to it.